Ron DeSantis has an extremely ambitious goal here in Florida, and that is to eliminate the property tax.
Well, that's where it's at right now, a conversation and growing debate that would take a constitutional amendment being proposed and passed by 60% of voters.
This is pinching people, and I think that's something that you should look at.
Governor Ron DeSantis continuing to voice support of making Florida the first state to abolish property taxes.
In this video, we're going to explore what that means and is it even possible. Now, before we start talking about the property tax and kind of what's in his plan here, let's talk about the Florida housing market in general. And for this, I always like to refer back to data first, just to get our bearings here. So when we look at single family homes, January data 2025 versus same time last year, the median price right now is $410,000, which is up by 1.2%. Now, median time to contract is about 50 days. So you probably already noticed that homes are just staying on the market longer, and it's taken a while for them to go pending. I will say that the ones that are very well priced, that show really nicely, they can go pending within just a few days or even a few weeks time. And there are still multiple offer situations across Florida, but just in general, it is taking much longer for a home to go pending. Months of supply for single family homes is over 5 months right now. So there's been a spike of inventory in January. We'll have to see if, the inventory that's come to the market is actually selling through, but absolutely months of supply is going up. In a balanced market, I would say here in Florida, it's probably around 5 to 6 months. If inventory level continues to increase, we should see the prices coming down in the single family home category. Now, the story is going to be a little bit different for the condo market, and for that we're going to pull from townhouse and condos data. It's kind of lumped together in Sunstat, but a big portion of this is going to be condos. And so the median price right now for condos as of January 2025 is $312,000, which is a minus 2.3% decline. And in some of my other videos, I talked about the Surfside bill and the mandate it's posing on older condos that are 3 stories and higher. You should definitely check out that video. A lot of these condos, because they haven't really brought up their budget to being able to make repair work, now they have to go through a milestone inspection and also a reserve study. And so a lot of these older condos are seeing high assessments coming through in the form of special assessments and also higher condo fees. The publicity also around all of this happening right now is really kind of painting the condo market in not the best of lights. When it comes to median time to contract, it's taking even longer to sell right now, approximately 63 days. If it's an older condo, you could easily see them being online for 100, 150 days, 200 days on the MLS before it goes pending, if it goes pending. Now, months of supply is 9.1, so there's a huge pileup of condos. It's an opportunity for somebody who knows what they're doing in the condo market. The homeowners insurance crisis is also slowing down demand for Florida living because it's getting really expensive to carry homeowners insurance on a home, especially an older home. And so on average, a homeowner is paying approximately $10,000 to insure their home here in Florida. Now, there are going to be more affordable options, especially when you're looking for homes that are further removed from the coast in an X zone and new construction homes. I keep saying this in my other videos, and that is, it's not impossible to get homeowners insurance for $2,000 on a new construction home. Of course, it depends on the dwelling coverage, but what I'm trying to say is it can get much more affordable. But most of the homes are not going to be new construction, so the average cost when it comes to homeowners insurance right now is about $10,000. Approximately 15 to 20% of homeowners right now in Florida are self-insuring, which I think is a big mistake because, gosh, don't you want to sleep at night knowing that the summer season is just around the corner and hurricanes are just a way of life here in Florida. It may not happen every year, it may not happen every 2 or 3 years, but it'll happen again. And you would want to make sure that your property is safeguarded, your investment that is. The Florida government, headed by Governor DeSantis, is looking to stabilize the homeowners insurance crisis, reduce the rates that have gone so high. Just recently, he actually announced rate cuts for many of those that live in South Florida and that are insured through Citizens Property Insurance. Unfortunately, where I live in Southwest Florida, that's not going to be a benefit for us, but it is a starting point. So they're already announcing rate cuts for those homes that are in Miami-Dade County, and also auto insurance. There's a statewide reduction of auto insurance prices. Property prices have shot up quite a bit over the last 4 years. In some areas, it could easily have been over 50%, maybe even doubling in home prices. And so with that, property taxes have increased as well. If you're somebody that lives here full time, then you can homestead your home. Basically what it does is it caps the increases to approximately 3%, no more than 3% a year. If you're somebody that's, say, just part-time here, less than 6 months out of the year, maybe you're just snowbirding, but you have a second home here, then you can't homestead it because you're not a Florida resident. In that case, property taxes can go up to 10% a year, estimated. Let's go back 4 or 5 years. That could easily have been an increase in property taxes for some of you by maybe 10, 12, 13%. If you're somebody that's coming new into the market, and this is going to differ depending on the location in Florida, but here in Sarasota, where I live in, we would go with approximately 1.1 to 1.2% of the sales price. And now if there's CDD fees lumped into it, like there are in Lakewood Ranch or in Welland Park, which are master plan communities in our area, then you would maybe factor 1.4% of the sales price or 1.5%. So you're gonna wanna talk to a local agent, whether you're interested in Miami or Orlando or Colorado or wherever, in Tampa, Sarasota, to better understand what the property taxes are going to be for the sales price of a home. They're going to give you a good estimation for budgeting purposes. When it comes to eliminating the property taxes, one of the main questions to ask is, how does Florida make money? And how much of the money that Florida makes is actually property taxes? That'll give us a better idea of what has to give if property taxes are going to get slashed, and what types of people are going to benefit from it, and what types of people are probably not going to benefit from this. So most of you probably already know, when it comes to personal state income tax, there are none here in Florida, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of especially high earners love moving here and living here and working here, because they can save a lot of money. And so instead, the state relies heavily on sales taxes, tourism, corporate taxes, fees from businesses and residents. Now, property taxes are one of the major revenue streams for the state here in Florida, but they're collected on a local level, and the money typically becomes major funding for things like school districts, municipalities, and counties. So let's break down the general revenue for Florida just a little bit more. So we got sales tax, which is 6% in Florida, and then whatever local governments want to charge in terms of additional taxes. Florida makes a lot of money through tourism, not surprisingly. This is a go-to place here in Florida, partially because of the warm climate. Corporate income tax will also flow into the revenue stream for Florida, and it is lower than, say, in California or in New York. And that's one reason why, especially over the last decade, a lot more businesses have taken their headquarters from, say, New York, especially Manhattan, and have moved it down to Miami, for example, because, hey, if they're saving on taxes, that'll give them more money towards the bottom line. Then there's sin taxes, which are not the good taxes. I'm just kidding. Those are just the taxes that they're putting on alcohol, tobacco, and gambling, for example. Real estate transfer taxes, and it's a tax that is paid typically by the seller when the home is sold, and the tax is actually called the documentary stamp tax. So the seller typically pays it, but it is negotiable. Also tolls. There's lots of tolls here in Florida, and through these fees, the state will make money. So now that we have a better idea of how the state makes money, and understanding that property taxes is actually a really big portion of this. And so if we take property taxes away, either we're going to have to plug that hole, so money is going to have to come from somewhere else, or something is going to have to give. We might have to give up some services, for example. And so what do others say about this? People who are actually studying the economy. Let's take Esteban Leonardo DeSantis. He has a PhD as a policy analyst at the Florida Policy Institute. And he told Newsweek that eliminating property taxes in the state would likely result in either higher sales taxes or severe cuts to essential public services. And that could include education, public safety, infrastructure, and community programs. So again, either Florida makes more money or something is going to have to give, right? After federal transfers, which are funds received from the federal government for various programs and services, Florida's largest sources of per capita revenue were property taxes and charges such as state university tuition and highway tolls. So according to urban.org, property taxes are the number 2 main sources of revenue. According to the Florida Policy Institute, which is a nonprofit organization, if policymakers wanted to eliminate property taxes, they would need to raise estimated $43 billion, which is per person roughly $2,015, in order to maintain public services currently funded with property tax revenue. And so that understanding the importance of property taxes, just because of the magnitude of revenue that it has brought in to the state, how possibly then can Florida replace it? There's a few options here that could be considered, and possibly the state may consider a combination of these. For one, the sales tax could be increased. So right now it's approximately 6% on a state level, but as I mentioned earlier, local governments can add to it, and sometimes they do, maybe 2% or 2.5%. Now places such as California, New York have high sales taxes. If, say, Florida brought it up to 10% or maybe 12%, the burden is going to be on lower income people, especially those that are renters, that are not profiting. If you take out property tax out of the equation, it really doesn't matter to them. But now, besides having a tight budget, now they have to pay more money. The second option is to just expand the tourism taxes. The state is relying on tourism, and so to make it even more pronounced as the major source of the state, I think is very dangerous. It's like putting a few eggs in just one basket. Well, what if there's a downturn and all of a sudden we don't have tourists coming in here? So we wouldn't want to be reliant on tourists, but also tourists have choices. They can go vacation other places. Georgia, South Carolina, California for Disneyland there. It's just lots of beautiful places, not just in the US, but in the world. And so we wouldn't want to make it too expensive here. The third option is just taxing corporations more. I'm a fan of this because corporations make a lot more money, but it has to be done very carefully. Right now, the corporate income tax is roughly 5.5%, where, for example, in California, it's estimated 8.84%. So it's higher in California. And that's one of the reasons why many businesses are relocating to, say, Miami to bring their headquarters there in order to take advantage of the corporate income tax, for example, and some of the other business-friendly environments that Florida actually offers to businesses. If the state takes up the taxes too much, it could make it less attractive for these businesses. Who is going to hurt are those people, especially who are looking for good work. Many of you already know that there is no state income tax here in Florida. Well, that's one of the reasons a lot of people are wanting to move here, especially those that are making a lot of money. High earners can save a lot of money living somewhere where there's no state income tax. But Florida could say this is the end of no state income tax. If Florida did this, that would detract a lot of people from wanting to live here, and probably a lot of people would move out of here. I really think this is probably one of the least likely to happen. The government can also say, okay, well, you're a luxury buyer, you own a luxury home, you have luxury goods, we'll just pass higher taxes on you instead of just doing it kind of broad-based towards all consumers because you're making more money, so you can afford to pay more. I think this is going to be not a popular option. I think what's going to happen is, if this truly were to pass through, is they're going to have to take a combination of tactics, and that is increasing sales tax, corporate tax, tourism tax, but also needing to figure out what government services need to be gutted in order to be able to close that void. And so could this truly happen? I mean, I don't know. They're going to be discussing this, and I think it's going to take a few years. Now, DeSantis' proposal is really gaining a lot of traction because to a lot of homeowners, this is sounding really good until you start analyzing that more needs to happen here, and it might not be as easy to fill that gap. And just to put this into perspective, it was actually tried before in 2012 by North Dakota. And once voters realized what needed to be given up in order to be able to get the elimination of property taxes, the overwhelming voter base actually voted against it and said, we don't want this. We don't want to eliminate property taxes because we're just not willing to give up on the government services that otherwise would have to get squashed. So it's so important to understand where money is coming from. If there's a tax reduction, the same holds true for the 2025 proposal. Where is that money coming from? It doesn't just grow from trees. Something's got to give. And so it's important that we understand what that is. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I always appreciate you guys. Have a great day.